Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's Tactical IPAWS training and discussion. My name is Stephanie Myers, and I'm the Marketing Manager at Emergency Communications Network. I'll be moderating today's session. We know the group is very busy, so we'll set some ground rules to make sure we have enough time to cover the most important topics and, of course, give you the opportunity to ask your questions. To submit a question, simply use the question function in the bottom right-hand corner of the meeting navigation pane. Send it privately, and we'll make sure to answer your questions after the presentations are finished. Today, you'll hear from two industry experts, from Rick Wimberly, who is a consultant for FEMA IPAWS, and he's also a consultant in emergency notification. You'll also hear from Don Hall, a former emergency manager who has worked in public safety for his entire professional career. Their diverse backgrounds and current responsibilities will give the presentation two distinct views on the federal alerting system. Rick will begin the presentation with an overview of the alerting system, and Don will provide some important information to any emergency manager or public safety practitioner who is currently using or has plans to implement IPAWS in the future. Without further delay, I'll pass the presentation over to Rick Wimberly to lead us off. Rick, the presentation is all yours.
Thank you, Stephanie. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for all of you who have attended. Looks like a good turnout for this session. I'm here to talk to you about the IPAWS program, which is the Integrated Public Alert and Warning System that I suspect that most of you have heard at least something about. And before we finish, you'll have hopefully a good overview of what the current state of IPAWS is, including some of the things that you can get involved in short term and some of the things that have been happening with IPAWS over the last few months or so. Basically, what we're doing here is facing the challenge that we all face, and that is that people's communications preferences have changed dramatically over the years, and never before have there been so many channels available to communicate with. And it's a good thing because we need them, because preferences are changing. Just think about how you communicate now and how you communicated 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. Who would have thought that we would be communicating some of the ways that we communicate now? So the federal government developed a realization that the public expects and needs for us to be more reactionary to the way that the general public likes to communicate, and came up with the program that was inspired after September 11th by a presidential order that I won't read you the whole presidential order, but basically what it said was that it is the policy of the United States to have an effective, flexible, and comprehensive system to alert and warn the general public. From that was created the Integrated Public Alert and Warning System and some of the programs that fall under IPAWS. Here's a diagram of basically what IPAWS is. Its intent is to be a system of systems so that local alerting authorities and certain federal and state agencies have the ability to send a single alert through an interface such as the one that ECN Code Red offers. And that interface would be sent to, or that message would be sent to a gateway that FEMA maintains called IPAWS Open. And from there, the message would be massaged so that it can be received by all types of different modes of communication. One would certainly be the emergency alert system, which you're all familiar with, wireless emergency alerts, the new cell broadcast system, the alert systems that NOAA, the National Weather Service, uses on certain internet services. For example, Google is developing the ability to pick up these types of alerts. State and local systems that are already in place. And I think the coolest one is the future technologies. We really don't know where, none of us knows, where communications technology is going to take us down the road. We really don't know where the people will be expecting to get alerts. So the system is designed to use a standard called Common Alerting Protocol, so that whatever comes down the pike, those communications devices should be accommodated in order to deliver alerts to the general public, which is our ultimate goal. So there have been a number of things happening to IPAWS in the last, let's say, year. It's been around for quite a while. And I think some people would say that it had been around for a number of years and it wasn't real clear that there was a lot of activity, but that has certainly changed in the last year. One is the Wireless Emergency Alerts Program, which is the cell broadcast system, has launched and it's being used rather extensively. Uses have increased both through activity by the National Weather Service and by some local agencies. Success stories have been developed. In fact, one of the things that we'll talk about today is some of those success stories that have followed. And I think very importantly, there's been a call to action issued so that state and local authorities now know what they need to do in order to be able to take advantage of IPAWS and this system of systems. And we'll go over in the next few minutes or so exactly what this call to action is and exactly what you can do in order to become a part of the IPAWS program. Let's talk first about wireless emergency alerts. If you have a relatively new cell phone and there has been an Amber Alert issued in your area, if there's been a weather warning issued in your area, chances are very good that you have received an alert through your cell phone that quite frankly may have surprised you. You would have heard a tone that sounded very similar to the tones that are used for the emergency alert system, and regardless of what your cell phone was doing at the time, a message would have popped up that looked similar to a text message. In fact, one of the things that we observed as recently as only a few minutes ago is a great deal of social media activity when wireless emergency alerts are used. Last night in San Diego area, for example, a system was used for the first time, and I was just watching some of the social media activity, and it spiked quite dramatically a few hours ago, where people were asking what it was that woke them up in the middle of the night to give them the Amber Alert. And then you had quite a few people who were responding, explaining to people what this is, this new wireless emergency alerts program. So it works quite simply. One is the local alerting authority, and I suspect many of you, if you haven't already applied to be a local alerting authority, hopefully that's something you will do in the future so that you can be prepared to use this system locally. So a local alerting authority would issue an alert to a specific geographic area meeting specific criteria that I'll talk about in a moment. Then the message would be sent to the IPAWS Open Message Aggregator, which was on the chart that you saw a couple of slides ago. And there the aggregator massages the message, checks it for its validity, doesn't check the content. You have the pretty much the ultimate say on the content as long as it meets the standards that were established by the Common Alerting Protocol. And then the message is sent to the carrier gateways. And what we have is most of the cell carriers in the nation, or certainly the major carriers, your AT&Ts, your T-Mobiles, your Sprints, your Verizon, they have voluntarily agreed to participate in this program, and which meant that they invested quite a bit into their infrastructures so that they could receive an alert from the IPAWS message aggregator and then know what to do with it when they receive it. The way this program works is it sends a broadcast message from a tower, just the same as a broadcast signal comes from a radio or TV tower. This is not a direct one-to-one communication as your text messaging would be, but this is a broadcast shouted from the cell towers. So any of the devices that are within range of the cell tower and have been equipped to receive WIAs, and most of the devices, certainly most of the newer devices, smartphone devices, have been equipped to receive WIA, will automatically pick up these messages that are broadcast from the tower. Then from there, the towers will broadcast to the cell devices within the geographic area served by the tower. It's important to remember we have certain laws of physics involved in that the broadcast won't necessarily stop at county lines. If the tower's range exceeds a governmental boundary, then that message will be broadcast beyond that governmental boundary. And I will tell you that there has been some question, even some concerns about the ability of WIA to geo-target messages, and that capability is getting stronger all the time. The laws that govern the WIA program state that the messages can be in an area that should cover a county, but the carriers have adapted their networks so that more precise geographic targeting can occur rather than having to send a message to the entire county. And the capabilities to do that kind of vary from carrier to carrier and probably from geographic area to geographic area. So that's a pretty high-level overview, although it's quite simple. Now, WIA has been used well over 4,000 times by the National Weather Service alone. And the first WIA messages were issued by the Weather Service, it was either late June or early July. And you can see that some of the types of activities that have stimulated WIA messages through the National Weather Service. And I will say that the Weather Service only uses it for warnings, although not a tornado warning. Also, it was used rather extensively after Superstorm Sandy, and with a lot of good publicity that followed, a lot of people complimenting the use of that system. WIA has been used rather extensively and quite successfully for Amber Alerts. We know for a fact one was issued last night in San Diego. The state of Minnesota likes to talk about one that they issued, and they believe that the WIA messages were responsible for them to be able to bring the situation under control in short order. And as I mentioned, as we saw in San Diego, you can see here how social media mentions spike when Amber Alerts have been issued. And if they are issued in your community and you're not prepared to answer why these alerts were issued, you'll find that that there will be a lot of people who will be asking questions about it. It's also been used by local public safety agencies. A good example was after the Boston Marathon bombings, the local authorities issued a shelter-in-place alert the day afterwards, and they did use WIA to tell the public that they needed to shelter in place. I'm here to say my son was in that geographic area, and when he received the message on his cell phone, it certainly got his attention. And I was really impressed with one of the things that they did when they issued that alert is they also issued an advisory to the media, telling the media that the alert was going to be issued, because one of the things that's true is most of these alerts, since they can only contain very limited amounts of information, most of them will say check local media. In fact, one of the things that we've been doing is launching some educational programs to media to help them understand what WIA is, to view it as a complement to the broadcast or whatever that they do, and to make them aware that the public is going to be turning to them when these messages are issued, so they need to be prepared. Now, there's some facts about WIA that you need to know. There are 3 reasons WIA can be used. They can be used for imminent threats, and you as a local authority, a local alerting authority, do have a good bit of leeway to determine what an imminent threat is. They can and have been used for Amber Alerts, and by the way, the National Weather Service, when they issue a warning, that is issued, they are issued under the category of imminent threats. And the President of the United States has the ability to use WIA for a national emergency, just like the President can use the emergency alert system, although, as you know, since the emergency alert system or its predecessors have been in place since the early 50s, no president has ever used the emergency alert system. Messages can only be 90 characters. You don't have a lot of ability to give a lot of information. So you need to educate the public that when they receive these alerts, that they've got to go other places to get more information about the alert. They need to understand that they are only issued for very serious situations, and that these alerts are meant to get their attention so that they will seek more information and, if necessary, take action. Geographic targeting is possible, and depending on where you are, that geographic targeting, as I said earlier, can be to an area that is more precise than a county. And when you use the interfaces that your vendors, such as Code Red, Emergency Communications Network, will provide you, they pretty much in the front end will take care of that geographic targeting and then deliver the message with the right targeted information to the IPAWS system so that it can figure out which cell towers to send it to. WIA is an opt-out program, not an opt-in. With the new cell devices, the citizens are automatically enrolled in the program. If they do not want to get the alerts, then they can go to their interface and they can opt out for imminent threats and Amber Alerts. They cannot opt out of presidential alerts. And one of the things that we've noticed by tracking social media after Amber Alerts were issued is there is a bit of traffic advising people on how to opt out, but we did some very specific analysis of a finite period of several weeks, and by far the sentiment was either positive or negligible or neutral. The sentiment that was negative in the social media was a relatively low percentage to the positive sentiment and the neutral sentiment. The neutral sentiment being mostly, does anybody know where these alerts came from? There are no charges for WIA messages, no charges for the consumer. There's no charge for you to enroll in the program. The only charge that you may have is to whatever your vendor may charge in order to provide the capability so that you can originate the alerts. It does use, as I mentioned, cell broadcast technology, so it's not as prone to clogged networks. We all have heard the horror stories of a major event occurring, so many people using their landlines or their cell lines that people were not able to get through. But because this is a broadcast and not a one-to-one communication, it's not vulnerable to the type of congestion that you would find everywhere or in other situations. Now, one of the things I want to mention is FEMA has recently published a white paper called Alerting the Whole Community, Removing Barriers to Alerting Accessibility. This white paper specifically addresses how the IPAWS program can help provide access to people with access and functional needs. And one of the ways that it does it is through the WIAS system, a unit at Georgia Tech University, which does a lot of research on communications to people with disabilities, found in a recent study that the second preferred method for a person with a disability to receive an alert was through a text message, which you could, although it's not technically a text, you could certainly consider a WIA message a text message. That was up from the 6th position. The number 1 position belongs and has belonged to television. So between television and the WIA system, we believe that that there are greater access opportunities for people with functional needs. And this white paper, which you can get through the FEMA.gov media library, or if you get in touch with us, we'll be glad to send you a copy, gets into that and talks about IPAWS and alerting the whole community. What you're looking at here is a chart of the organizations that have applied to become local alerting authorities. And you can see there's been a steady increase as recently as July 18th of organizations that are applying to get alerting authorities. And here's how you do it. In order to apply for alerting authority, number 1, you have to identify the solution that you're going to use. And there are a number of technology vendors, and I will have to say that Code Red and Emergency Communications Network are among the largest vendors who were there first to make sure that their solution would work with the IPAWS system. So you will need to identify that you're using Code Red. You will apply with FEMA for a collaborative operating group. And basically, this is the group of you who are applying for authority. For example, if you want to apply as a county, your county would become a COG. In some states, regions are becoming COGs. So however you want to do that, that's up to you. So you will apply for a COG with FEMA. Once that's done, you will apply to your state for alerting authority. And most of the states are currently processing alerting authority applications. There are a very few who are not. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, we can give you the skinning on your state. So if you don't know what the status is, check with your state, and usually it's the Emergency Management Agency, and find out what their status is for accepting these applications for alerting authority. And the last one is to go to EMI and take IS-247, course IS-247. And in fact, I would encourage you to go ahead and do that regardless of your status of applying for alerting authority. That's IS-247. It'll take you a couple of hours to do it. Of course, no charge for that. And but that certification will be needed for you to get the codes that you will need to send alerts through IPAWS. Now, some of the resources that you can use to get more information, certainly you can do a keyword search on FEMA IPAWS. There is a tremendous amount of information on the IPAWS website, including about everything you need to know to become an alerting authority. On our website, galainsolutions.com, we have a good bit of information. We also blog regularly on all types of topics related to alerts and warnings and notifications for Emergency Management Magazine And if you're not following that blog, I would suggest that you do that. We're very active. There are usually several posts covering a variety of things in addition to IPAWS, and on there every week. Feel free to send me an email, Rick Wimberly at GalainSolutions.com, and don't hesitate to call my cell number, 615-207-5074. Call me anytime. I enjoy answering questions, and I enjoy hearing what's on people's minds. So there you have it, my overview of the Integrated Public Alert and Warning System, and please don't hesitate to reach out to me and let me know what you thought of this little presentation. I do it quite often, but it can always be better, and it will be better through your input. Thank you. Now back to you, Stephanie.
Thank you so much, Rick. What a great presentation. We're just going to transition really quickly over to Don's presentation. Give us just a minute.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. We certainly appreciate everyone taking the time out of their busy schedule today to get on board with us and let us try to help provide a little bit of information on this very important topic that's going on across the United States. And thank you, Rick, for helping us and joining in and sharing your expertise in this arena for us. As Stephanie says, my background is in public safety, and for all my adult life, and the most recent 20 years in emergency management in a couple of different jurisdictions, small county jurisdiction, large city jurisdictions. So I've had the occasion to have quite a bit of experience in disasters and in mass notification systems and things of that sort. So what I want to do with you folks today is first, I'm going to talk about mass notification systems in general. Then I'm going to relate that to IPAWS as to what the difference is. We get a lot of information back from some of our clients and proposed customers that they really still don't understand everything, and they think that there are some pieces of equipment that will be coming to their location to help provide with this, and we want to make sure that they understand this process fully. So, like I said, as a former emergency manager, I can fully understand, or can honestly say that for many years, I didn't realize the benefits of my mass notification system. I realized early on that no local jurisdiction should be without one, and so I had one, and I checked the proverbial box of having a mass notification system. But did I use it to its fullest extent? And did I use it to where it gave me the greatest benefits? In most cases, no. Not until I had several disasters that led me to believe and led me to understand that I could use this system to benefit me a little bit better. As a public safety official, I always had the feeling that I had the obligation to provide information, whether it's emergency information or post-emergency information, but it was my obligation to provide that information to the public. And this was the best way that I found that it could be done. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, if you will. So no local jurisdiction should be without a mass notification system. IPAWS is coming to you if you don't already have it. IPAWS will add some things for you, but will not replace your mass notification system. And we'll get into that in just a few seconds. Again, as a public safety person, a public safety official, you have the inherent responsibility to provide timely protective action to your citizens. Your mass notification system can be used for emergency information before, during, and after an incident. that was very critical to me. I didn't realize or didn't really put it together that afterwards, the post-storm, the post-event, because it wasn't an emergency maybe. I didn't consider it a highly emergency message that needed to go out, but it's still important information that needs to go out. And so by trial and error, I suddenly realized that that was a good tool to get that out. So think outside the box on that. It can be used before, during, and after an incident. It can also be used to disseminate general information, depending on what your jurisdiction sets up their policy and likes to have whatever information they want to be able to provide to the public. And typically I found it was just the best tool in the toolbox that I had if I used it to my advantage. So 3 simple keys to success that I found with the mass notification system that I'd like to pass on to you that I think will be very helpful if you haven't already done this. A lot of you have probably reached that proactive stage, have probably learned like I did by trial and error. But these are a couple of keys that I wanted to share that will, I believe, will help you with your mass notification system and emergency notifications in general. So the first thing, if you don't already have one, in emergency management, fire rescue, law enforcement, we have plans, shelves and shelves of plans for every hazard, every incident that goes on. But how many folks have an emergency notification plan or emergency notification annex possibly to your emergency operations plan? If not, I suggest that you create one and you develop one. Easily done. Use your normal planning teams that you would use. Identify all methods and means of notifications. All methods and means of notifications. Not just your mass notification system, not just IPAWS, not just your media, not just NOAA weather radios. Everything that you have in your arsenal or available to you at your jurisdiction level to provide information to the public needs to go out if you have that emergency message that is imminent for the public. So you want to identify who has the authority to launch calls, who has the authority to make those calls for you. Set trigger points for activations and identify those hazards that you would use it for and the trigger points as to why you would use them. Example everybody would understand is a mass casualty incident. Mass casualty incidents have levels, level 1, 2, 3, mass casualty incident, and there are trigger points in there that identify what creates a level 1, what creates a level 2, and so on and so forth. The same thing you could do with your mass notification plan or your emergency notification plan is to get all of that together ahead of time in a plan that everybody has agreed to and everybody knows where that information is, and we're all working off the same page. You also want to make sure, if I didn't say this already, that you make sure that you include the IPAWS plans in there. But as Rick said earlier, the IPAWS part of this nationwide notification system is an extension of your current EAS system that the majority of you have in place in your EOCs. Your encoders, decoders that go out to the local medias, the primary one stations that intercept your message and then resend it to the primary twos. So that is there. IPAWS is an extension of that will add a few more notification components to getting that word out, which is exactly what we're all about, getting the word out. So your notification plan, that should be done, and you know how to write plans. I have to tell you that. The second thing I would suggest is develop a user agency task force for your mass notification system. It got to the point where I needed to have that in one of the jurisdictions that I was with, a larger jurisdiction. And once we realized that and put this task force together, it was very successful for us to be able to do that. So I wanted to share a little bit about that with you. have one person from each agency that is a user on your system be a part of this task force. That task force is used to set the policy, set the procedures, what it can be used for, when it should be used, who can use it, set all of the guidelines for that. This group also could serve as a watchdog group for the system to meet however you decide, quarterly, monthly, whatever your determination is, to ensure that the system succeeds your expectations and is running smoothly and everybody understands how to use it and is using it and playing fair on the system. So it's kind of a watchdog thing for you. It seems to work pretty well. Once you get together with this task force, you can also naturally solve problems, discuss new ways. Do we need to change the plan? Has it been working right? As you would in any other plan. The other thing I've suggested at this point is that your user task force group, that one person from each agency, put those folks on your always call list so that everybody's getting the messages that are going out regardless of what agency is sending it. And that's a very good way for this watchdog group to be able to do their monitoring, to listen and see what calls are being going out and how the system is being used. So that works really well. And hopefully that suggestion may work well for you. The other thing I want to put in there is, and Rick talked about this earlier, and I will probably say this more than once today, but we need to use every mechanism available to disseminate emergency protective action. When there's a message that needs to go out, it's important enough to use either of these methods of dissemination. We want to use every method that you can use, every method that you have identified to you. By sitting down and writing that emergency notification plan, you're going to identify all of those capabilities that you have, or give you a shopping list to go out and create some and set some things up that you may not have that you think you should add. So you want to make sure you have all that, and as Rick said, and I'll use his term, a system of systems is exactly what you want to have, a system of systems. We'll be the first to tell you that you need to have in your local jurisdiction a mass notification system. However, it should be used in conjunction with every other tool in that category that you can use, such as the IPAWS, the EAS, the sirens, big voice speaker systems, highway traffic signboards, social media, and the TV, radio media, etc., like the EAS will do for you. So those are three things that I think will be very helpful. And even after this presentation, if you'd like to talk to me offline about some of those ideas and how we went about them more in detail, I would really be happy to assist you on that. Okay, so I'm going to talk a few minutes about notification systems, and then I'm going to jump into IPAWS. Notification system facts. It is a fact that you can set your own limitations on the use, and you do that through that policy and that plan and that guideline that we just talked about on the last frame. So you'll be able to set your own limitations. You're not restricted to the imminent threat, the Amber Alert, or the presidential alert like you are with IPAWS. So you use IPAWS when those things apply. When there's a message that needs to go out that doesn't fit the category for IPAWS, you need to have and you need to use your other forms of notification. So notification systems delivered to phones, wireless devices, texting, email, social media, and electronic devices. You're also able to use larger and broader message capacity with the notification system, a lot larger than with the WIA broadcasts that Rick alluded to a few minutes ago. 90 characters on the broadcast, and some of those characters are taken up by the identifiers in the beginning of the message. And so like Rick said, you really have to, you're alerting them to tell them to go somewhere else to get some more information with IPAWS. With your mass notification system, you'll have a little more leeway to be able to give them a little bit more information usually texting 120 to 140 characters depending on your carrier, but that it will allow you to get some more information out. Also, you'll be able to deliver voice messages, which are very, very powerful. Voice messages are the most powerful in the notification system. That is because you are going to give that information with a local level of authority figure, yourself as the emergency management director, yourself as a fire chief or a police chief, a health department director, or one of your political figures, a mayor or county commissioner, or whoever you use. But that's an authority voice, and that really gives you a lot of weight with that. So also provides multiple data layers. You can provide, with WIA, it is what it is, and the broadcast will go out and hit the phones that they can hit. With your mass notification system, you can provide other data layers that will enhance the capability of your outreach efforts. So also, it can be opt-in and opt-out system for your mass notification. Opt-in, in most cases, there's a community enrollment page where folks can go in and opt in their own information. And lots of times following a call, folks will call in and say, please take my name out of that system, and you have that capability. So there is opt-in ability and opt-out ability. There is a geo-targeting mapping capability in your mass notification system that isn't quite there yet with IPAWS and gives you a lot more latitude with calling right down to the street level on those mass notification call-outs for geo-targeting. And finally, the most important fact that you're going to get from a mass notification system that, as far as I know, I don't think you'll be able to get from any other means of message dissemination, whether it's sirens, media, or either of those. You're going to have that statistics provided. Following the end of the call, you'll be able to have the statistics and see what was your success rate, how many folks actually got the message, and if they have any concerns. So the statistics is a really big key in that. Okay, IPAWS, facts about IPAWS, just to set the record straight on some of these. Rick will tell you, FEMA will tell you, anyone with authority will tell you that IPAWS is never intended to, and it should never intend to replace a local jurisdiction's mass notification system. There are lots of differences, and we've talked about them, that you have much more latitude with your mass notification system. So IPAWS is an extension of the existing EAS program. It allows for more arteries to get that message out to the public, now through the cell towers and through NOAA weather radio. IPAWS is more than just WIA as well, more than just WIA. You hear WIA a lot because of the cell phone towers. The cell phones get a lot of attention in the social media spikes that Rick was talking about. EAS is a part of that. NOAA weather radio disseminates your messages, whether it's weather related or not. Sign message boards, anything locally like that, it's also in IPAWS. With IPAWS, you have that unlimited authorized use, where it has to be one of those three: imminent threat, Amber Alert, or presidential. Right now, IPAWS does not do phone calls, emails, social media without local interface. It requires the local jurisdiction, that COG or that authority, that originating authority, will have to do their own interfacing and have that program to be able to do anything other than the EAS, NOAA, and WIA. That's local for you. Again, limited to 90 characters. It is TIPS code and cell tower coverage delivery through WIA. And Rick talked a little bit about what the downfall of some of that is, where the cell tower is going to deliver that out as far as it can go. And it may or may not hit, it may hit folks that are not relevant to that emergency. They be in a different jurisdiction. and maybe sometimes cause a little cry wolf, which is what we're concerned of a little. FIPS code, if the FIPS code is used in IPAWS, it's going to deliver to the entire county. So everyone is going to get it when you may only really have an event that has to have a street or a small community notified. So you have to remember that when you decide on whether you're going to use your IPAWS system or not, is what are the ramifications of, is it going to go out, how's it going to go out, and also still keep in mind that not all wireless devices are WIA capable. I happen to have a phone that's just barely a year old. It is not WIA capable. It is a smartphone. So you have to really concentrate on that and ask the questions of when you're buying a phone if it's WIA capable or not. So you have to have access approval from FEMA and from your state as a COG to get that origination authority. And you have to, there's no way around, there's no way you can access IPAWS without having a vendor-supplied origination tool. No one else is going to give that to you, maybe unless the state is going to provide it to their local jurisdictions. Maybe that's the case, but FEMA is not supplying that. No one else is supplying that, except that a local jurisdiction or that originator must have a vendor-supplied origination tool to access IPAWS. So naturally in Code Red, Rick talked about this earlier, Code Red ECN does have a IPAWS origination tool that we have clients that are using it and pretty successfully, and we have tested it pretty successfully. This is just a screenshot, a typical screenshot of what your origination tool will look like. We talked earlier about the fields that have to be filled in. You learn them with that FEMA EMI independent study course that you need to take and the information that comes from there. But this real simple form, the form is filled out, and you press go, send. You as that authorized user in this position has sent your alert to IPAWS as a local jurisdiction or state jurisdiction. It goes to the IPAWS alert aggregator to see if it is CAP compliant. If it is CAP compliant and it meets the protocols, it delivers it to these three devices here. Emergency alert system, which is your old EAS, your encoder decoders, and your media. The WIA, which goes to your wireless devices, and NOAA, which goes to your NOAA weather radios in those areas, depending on how you have disseminated the message. These three boxes below here even goes into future technology, so sky's the limit on future technology. We don't know yet. But as far as local phone systems, local mass notification systems, internet services, signed message boards, anything locally in these three categories have to be interfaced and programmed at the local level for you to be able to use. And that's something that a lot of folks don't fully grasp and haven't reached that component of what it takes to do that. So we just wanted to make sure that you understood that these are the three that the CAP messages are going to go to automatically. These have to be programmed by your local jurisdiction. And once you have sent your message and the IPAWS aggregator has accepted it and sent it on, then you get the message that it has been approved and it has been accepted. Now, I guess the downside of that is at this point here, that's your only statistic with IPAWS, is you know that it has met the origination requirements and has been launched, but that's as far as it goes, as far as how much more information you're going to get back on the success of your call with that. So we just wanted to make sure that you understood what IPAWS is. It is a great tool. It is greatly enhanced the EAS system. Is it 100%? Is it everything we need for it to be yet? No. Rick alluded to that as well. But it has capabilities and it has a lot of future technologies that will, I'm sure, be enhancing that system as we move forward. So just wanted to ask or show you just a few things that Code Red ECN has partnered with FEMA and IPAWS coordination. Our interface was tested with the Incident Management Test and Evaluation Laboratory, the STEP process with great success. Our Code Red IPAWS system confirms to all the common alerting protocols and now IPAWS profiles. The Code Red IPAWS interface has been regularly demonstrated by FEMA officials at industry trade shows and events. If you see an IPAWS display at any of your upcoming conferences, go take a look at it, go talk to the folks and learn some more information about it. And you're likely to see the Code Red engine there driving those demonstrations that IPAWS does at those shows, and we're pretty proud of that fact. Code Red will demonstrate our origination tool during an upcoming FEMA Technical IPAWS webinar, where vendors are on board showing their origination tool, and it's also really kind of a live test. It doesn't go out to the public, but it tests all of the backdoor systems to ensure that we are meeting and reaching those components of WIA, NOAA Weather Radio, and the EAS broadcast system. We will post that on our website when that date is going to be. We also have all of your emails that logged into the event today, and we'll make sure that you get that information if you're interested in that. And also, I may also add, just in closing, that if you are a COG or an authorized alerting authority already, and you wish to hear more and see more about the Code Red origination tool, we'd be happy to provide that information to you. Give us a call. Our website is up. Everyone has that. The information is on there. Our number is 866-939-0911. We'll be glad to provide that information for you and get you on your way. If you have more questions about how to become a COG or how to get that authority from your state, we'll also be able to help you with that. Rick could help you with that, or as he alluded to, contact your state emergency management agency. So with that, that concludes the part of the presentation that I have, but we will definitely open up the floor for any questions that any of the attendees may have.
Thank you so much, Don. That's a great presentation. Make sure if you have a question and you haven't already sent it, that you use the question function in the right-hand side of your screen. Let's see. All right, here's our first question. This is all good and well, but our wireless infrastructure is not and most likely will not feasibly be sufficient so that we can totally cut the wire. Numerous times the copper cable has been the key to failed communication systems. Rick or Don, either of you have a comment about that? Maybe Rick?
Well, I'm not quite sure I understood the question, Stephanie, but I think the answer goes back to what both Don and I said, and Don did a good job of emphasizing, is the fact that you've got to use everything you can get at your disposal, because there is no system that is without vulnerability. And the reality is, in a fast-breaking emergency, you don't know what those vulnerabilities are going to be. So you need to be prepared to throw something at, using everything you can muster, because clearly, everything's vulnerable.
All right, thank you. I think our next question is maybe geared more toward Don. I have a concern about the message reach, that people outside of our county lines may receive an IPAWS notification when they shouldn't. Should I be working with nearby agencies to coordinate if and when we launch to IPAWS?
Yeah, absolutely.
May I answer that?
Yeah, go right ahead.
I suspect our answer is going to be the same. Of course you should. You probably have a good relationship with your your neighboring jurisdictions as it is. But I think you have to educate yourself, and you have to educate the public to the fact that you almost have to look at these WIA messages the same as you look at a siren. It is a massive broadcast, and you have no real control over where it stops and where it stops. So you need to be prepared to be able to use your mass notification system to call people within the most affected area, and to just help people understand that this is to get their attention. That's all it is. The other reality is, if it's a serious event and you want someone to take action, the truth is people don't take action because of receiving instruction to take action through one mechanism. They just don't. Whether right or wrong, they just don't. They've got to have a multiple. They've got to hear it from at least two sources, or they won't do it.
I'll add one more part to that. What Rick has said is naturally you are going to have a pretty good working relationship with your neighboring counterpart. But what you can do when you launch your IPAWS messages, you can include a COG-to-COG message and include that message to go to that neighboring COG at the same time, so that they are getting the alert that you have launched this message, and that folks in their neighborhood may be getting that same message. So that is an avenue, a way of communicating that, and also working together ahead of time and in your planning processes to be able to just interoperable communications and working things out.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. Our next question may be geared towards you, Rick. Have any operating procedures been established regarding IPAWS?
In some of the states, some procedures have been established. It's really more of a state issue than it is a FEMA issue. FEMA has provided a system, and there's certainly certain rules surrounding the use of the system. But as far as operating process, that needs to come either from the state or the COGS. And some have indeed pushed out operating processes.
Okay. Thanks, Rick. We had another question asking when this presentation may be available. Basically, as soon as we're done here, we've actually recorded this session. We'll make it available on the Emergency Communications Network Code Red YouTube channel. We'll also be sending you a copy of these PowerPoint slides via email. So we obviously have your email addresses from registering. We'll make sure you get that information as soon as we have it available. Okay. I think this question is for Don. Can you just explain real quickly what the difference with today's webinar and the message origination webinar you just mentioned?
Yeah. Well, today's webinar is more of a fact sharing information on IPAWS and how it relates to your mass notification efforts in general. The FEMA-sponsored IPAWS webinar, technical webinar, is there to test the components of those origination providers that have stepped up to the plate and asked to be showcased and tested. So those are, you can get that information from the FEMA IPAWS website as well.
Okay, great. Thanks, Don. All right, I think that's about it that we had today. Again, thank you to our presenters, both Rick and Don. We really appreciate your time, and of course, the time of for those of you who are on the call today. Of course, we'll be sending up a follow-up email with a link so you can access this presentation at a later time. Again, if you have any other questions that you'd like to ask us, both Rick and Don are very happy to make themselves available. If you have any additional questions or concerns, you can always contact Emergency Communications Network, and we'll make sure that your questions get to the appropriate folks here. Again, thank you, everybody, for joining our webinar today, and hopefully we'll be talking to you all soon.
Thanks, Stephanie.